It finally happened! Ah! Hey everyone, and welcome to another video. So today I'm going to be reviewing Blood of My Blood episode 8. We actually just watched it, so for once I am reviewing it right after I saw it. So this episode was actually really interesting. It was, the essential premise of the whole episode is that the Grants are demanding that Ellen be tested to make sure she's a virgin before she marries Malcolm. And it's his father doing it. Malcolm is kind of seeming like, for all of the Grant, like how bad his dad is and the Grant clan as a whole, he doesn't seem like such a bad guy, and he really didn't want to put Ellen through this. So the whole premise revolves around that. Obviously she's not, because her and Brian have been together, so that's kind of like the dilemma is like, oh my gosh, you're wondering how is she going to get out of this. So that's kind of like the general situation and stuff with her. Ignore, there's a bunch of neighbors and stuff. Yeah, so she's really panicky. Colum and Dougal kind of have a conversation because they don't know whether she is or not. And Colum talks to Ned to make sure, like, hey, you were around her at Beltane. Were you always with her? So they're kind of having that conversation. Meanwhile, Brian's father is going to leave because he's going to a place to kind of try to get to heal, because he's not doing as well as he wants to in the bedroom, basically. So that gets rid of him. So you're thinking, okay, this is Julia, Claire's mom's, chance to escape with the baby and go find Henry. At the end of the last episode, I forgot to mention this in my review, she found a letter that Henry wrote, so she knows that he's a Bladier for the Grants. So now all she has to do is get there. But Brian, before his dad leaves, his dad taunts him and is like, oh, they're going to test Ellen and she's going to fail and then we're going to celebrate. And so he thinks that Brian did this on purpose, but Brian tries to tell him, like, I really love her, I don't want her to get hurt. So after the dad leaves, Brian's going to go to the Clan Mackenzie and like save Ellen, and his mom's like, you can't do that, they're going to kill you. So his mom's kind of freaking out. Julia overhears and she offers to help him, and he insists that like now's her chance to get away. She insists on helping, and so her and Brian head, she makes this concoction to like fool the test, basically, which I didn't know exactly how or what they were going to test, so I didn't know what the concoction was and if there's any real history to the test and or history to the concoction, because she did mention that like, oh, it's in books and she's read about it before. So yeah, and so she's insists that she go in because she knows how to sneak in and she can get to Ellen without getting caught, and if he does, like, he'll get killed. So they go together, and they come across this crossroads, and he offers to let her go to Clan Grant, but she insists on going with him to help Ellen. She couldn't live with herself if he died because of her. So I thought it was really fitting and sweet. And also Henry is actually with the Grants going to Ellen and the Mackenzies to test Ellen, so it's like Julia needs to get there because that's where Henry is. So they have Ellen's perspective, kind of worrying with her maid. Julia comes in, they work on the concoction type thing. She keeps Brian, Julia tells Brian to stay in the kitchens, and she sneaks up to the bedroom. So they do all of that just in time for Ellen to be taken to the main hall. And surprisingly, despite the subject matter of this whole episode, which is again having her tested to make sure that she's still a virgin before she marries Malcolm, there's no nudity in this episode, which I appreciated. It kind of seemed like it focused more on the historical aspects of women being tested like this, having their virtue tested, and kind of how it's kind of feels like, you know, wrong and like embarrassing and like all that stuff. So you really felt for her. So they do the test, and the plan that Julia did worked, so her virtue passes. And so that all works, and Malcolm seems like he feels bad for putting her through that, and so she goes back up to the room, tells Julia that it worked. They say goodbye. Aunt Ellen says she's indebted to her, so that's kind of interesting. So Julia goes back downstairs and gets Brian and tells him, hey, it worked, she's fine, we need to go. And so they get ready to leave, and Ellen's maid, Miss Fitzgibbons, confronts them and tells Brian, if you really love her, stay away from her for her own good. So Brian and Julia escape. Ellen's passed. And as Julia was heading back to the room to meet Ellen, she actually encounters Henry. So it finally happened. Julia is walking down. There was a moment earlier where they were walking and they just missed each other. So as you're watching the episode, you're like, come on, Henry and Julia reunite, but they keep teasing us. And so at this final instance, you're thinking, are they going to keep teasing us? Are they going to just miss each other again? And they look, and Henry actually turns and sees her. And earlier when he saw her pass a corner, he thought he was just hallucinating. Remember, he's had PTSD. He's thought that one, when he found out she died, he thought that one woman he's been with was her. So he's kind of lost his mind, and he knows that, but this time he saw her, and at first she walks away and kind of gestures to him. I'm like, don't do that, he may not follow you, but he did. And they reunite, and it's so sweet and amazing. Finally, Henry and Julia have reunited. Brian obviously shows up too, so Henry obviously doesn't know exactly what's going on, but he gets the gist of it. And she tells him, I'm at Castle Leathers, I can't go with you right now, it's too dangerous, that sort of thing, but we will find each other again, I swear. And so she kisses him, and they have to leave because her and Brian have to get out of here before the Grants find out that they were here, because that would obviously ruin the whole plan and spoil everything. So Henry is so happy. Obviously he knows now that Julia and his baby are alive and stuff, and so he leaves with the Grants. And that's pretty much the whole episode. It doesn't sound like a lot, but it was actually I gotta stop and take a breath. There's a strange dog, hold on. Sorry, I just want to be safe. So it doesn't sound like a lot, but it was, and you really feel for Ellen. There was a lot of tension about, is she going to pass? How is she going to pass, obviously? And there's still the question of how her and Brian are going to get together, because now everything's in place. Earlier, I forgot to mention that they somehow did get the dowry money back. So they have everything in place, the dowry money, everything is set for Ellen to marry Malcolm Grant. And I don't know, she doesn't. She marries Brian. I know her and Brian have been handfast, but I don't know how that's going to work out. And then the other side of the tension is now that Henry and Julia have been reunited. We know that in Claire's history, her parents never came back. She never had a brother named William. So obviously they get stuck in this time period, and I don't know how this is all going to work out. So there's a lot of questions, a lot of tension, and there was a lot of tension in this episode because you really felt for Ellen and what she had to go through being tested like that. It was another plot thread they used in Reign, and it was really good. And so in that one, Queen Catherine paid off the priest to lie. So it's in this one, you're you don't have that because the person testing them is from the Grant. So it's you can't pay off the person testing. So the question of how she was going to pass was the ton of tension for the whole episode. And then Julia's concoction worked, and I guess it faked the test. Obviously, we don't need to get into the details, but like I said, there was no nudity. So she was wearing a dress, and it kept everything covered and stuff. So I appreciated that because it then focused again on the history of how women probably would have been tested like that in the past and all that stuff. And then the teasing between Henry and Julia kind of getting close and passing each other and the almost reuniting before they actually did. And then Ellen and Brian, and you want them to be together and they're getting close. And now that they have that emotional connection, even though I wish they had developed it earlier in the season, now you're still rooting for them and wondering how they're going to get together. So overall, I really liked this episode. I don't know if it was a 5-star episode. Well, I really did enjoy the emotions of it for everybody. Ellen and Brian, and then Julia and Henry and Malcolm. You're starting to see a new side to his character. And Colm kind of seemed like he felt bad, but he doesn't really have a choice because the Grants will kill them all if they don't. Dougal doesn't really care, but they know if she had failed the test, the Grants would have killed Ellen. And you can tell that Colm kind of cares, but again, they'll bring their whole clan down if he doesn't comply. So I liked all of this stuff. Also, Henry is starting to try to get friendly with Malcolm because he thinks that's his way of escape from Mr. Bug's constant watching and stuff. And at the end of the episode, he gets a letter, and we find out that Malcolm's dad, the leader of the Grant clan, has died. So now Malcolm is the head of the clan. So I guess Henry's positioned himself really good getting in Malcolm's favor because now he's the clan leader, so he won't have that the older Grant man, keeping him there, and hopefully he can reunite with Claire, and not Claire, but Julia and the baby. But she made, in order to protect the baby, she obviously made Brian's dad, the Laird of Castle Leathers, make Papa Fraser basically make him think that the baby is his. So it's like there's a lot of questions. There's only 10 episodes in the season, and this was episode 8, so I don't know how everything is going to get resolved and fixed in 2 episodes, or if there's going to be a second season. I don't think so. It seems like it's going to be a one-off thing. But overall, love this episode. What did you guys think of this episode and the whole series so far? Let me know in the comments below. If you liked this video, please be sure to give it a like and subscribe for more writing and reading videos every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And in the meantime, if you liked my review of this episode, stay tuned for the next one.